Boys and ghouls, to all of our non-binary friends, to everyone on the spectrum and in between, welcome to the Shudder Show. I am your temporary host, and here is the smirking, wonderful co-host.
Oh, Ken Stacker. Is that my cue? Is that when I'm supposed to do this? Sorry, this is the third time we've done this, which is not my fault.
Oh, Ken, how are you doing?
I am fine and dandy like sugar candy. I am fit as a fiddle and ready for love. It is just another day of paradise, and I am ready to surf and find love.
Oh, Ken, we are particularly slap happy. I insisted that we re-record this beginning because I was a tired little boy who just happened to smoke the weed a little too soon and just couldn't make all the words come out of his mouth. But yeah, Ken, god damn it, it's so good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Episode 30.
This is the big 3-0. We are crossing a threshold. A Rubicon has been crossed.
But god damn it, we're still young.
It's true.
They say that the 30s episodes are your best episodes.
I don't know if podcasting has created that much of a cultural lexicon, but I will take your word for it, David.
I suppose podcasting, I guess, isn't 30 years old. I mean, I guess
No.
Technically radio is podcasts.
Well, I mean, radio is much older than that.
Yeah. But, I mean, I suppose, like, radio is just an old-timey podcast.
Yes.
Ken, what movie are we talking about today? What have I brought you?
We are talking about a little movie called Anything for Jackson, a Shudder show. Not a Shudder show original, just a Shudder original. We are not, they are not us and we are not them. We just think they're pretty rad.
Yes, yeah. This film was directed by Justin G. Dick, spelled D-Y-C-K. He's got a perfect way to spell that name and not have it be weird.
Yeah, flawless.
And this was written by someone he's worked with very closely. So kind of co-writer, co-director, Keith Cooper. Now, before we get off into talking about this film, we do have a treat for all of you.
Oh, it's true.
Yes. We have been able to nail down an interview with the absolutely wonderful Julian Richings. Julian Richings, of course, plays the character of Henry. One of the main characters, the grandfather and grandmother, Julian Richings, and then Sheila McCarthy, who plays Audrey. So we were able to get Julian on, and god damn it, is he delightful.
He's great. Yeah, it was great talking to him.
Yeah.
Or at least we will know that once that's happened.
I suspect.
In the future or past.
I suspect he is to be a delightful fellow.
Okay.
Because he is, in fact, an actor. And if actors aren't wonderful, then what are we doing here?
So we're going to travel either forward or backward in time. We don't. That information is classified. We don't really want to. It's a privacy issue. We really don't want to leak that. So we are going to get into the time machine for sure. Yeah. But we're going to travel in one direction or the other. We're not going to tell you. And then when we're back, we're going to talk about the movie. But until then, we're going to travel to that time and then do the interview.
Okay. I'm just going to roll over here. Put it on wheels. It's easier that way.
I got the casters for it. It was a smart decision.
Yeah.
Home Depot.
Okay. All right. Ken, after you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Hold on. I'm going to grab the weed. Take that with us.
Okay. And...
Ken and David, hi.
Hello,
Yes,
hello.
hi there.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Good.
Yes,
Good
hi,
to
I'm David, and on the other side there is Ken.
Hi.
Hello.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time, and we appreciate working with the whole reschedule situation. So we really appreciate the time that you're taking that.
It was for an important reason. Somebody got a jab.
Yeah. I got my second jab this morning, and
good.
and I got I got a call about a gig the other day, and it was one of those like, all right, well, this pays way too much. I have to hold on. Let me reschedule this, and so
got to do it. We're behind you in Canada. I've got my first one, but we're way behind on the second.
Oh, congratulations! Yeah, how are things going over there right now?
Well, I think very much like you. We're in the third wave of lockdown. It's the hardest, really, because we've got a little bit used to relaxing and going outside. Eating on a patio, drinking on a patio. Now that's been taken away because we've got a third wave.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hitting hard. And, as in like Canada, I don't know, are you guys East or West Coast? You West Coast?
West Coast.
Yeah, West Coast.
So you don't have the same winter that we do. But when you're coming out of the winter and then suddenly you're going, oh, spring's here, but then you got to stay indoors all the time.
Oh yeah, well, David and I both grew up in the Midwest. Like we're from Chicago. Yeah. So like, I definitely know the. I guess I'm just not going outside for a few days.
And that feeling where it's kind of crazy. Chicago's the same, New York, Toronto. It's like when the first bit of sunshine comes and it goes above zero, people are out in their shorts and their t-shirts and stuff. It's crazy. But anyway, so
yeah, and then it happens, and there's always at least one more like snow day after that. Which is like what I think what you guys are going through in Canada. Like the worst part is you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that, like, I'd almost rather just be in a dark tunnel and be like, I guess
I know, just
then like,
hibernating.
but just a few more weeks, and then I can the thing.
Yeah.
And so from what I understand, so you guys wrapped filming like a week before the first lockdown, correct?
The day of the lockdown.
Oh, dang!
It was one of those weird things. It was Friday the 13th of March.
Oh,
and
proper date.
Yeah. And we were scheduled it was a very quick and dirty film. We had I think it was our 15th shooting day, was that Friday. And we were we knew that the industry and the entire province was going to close down. And we were it was a race to the finish. And we just snuck in. We got all the shots. The final shots that we did, I think Justin, the director, will tell you that, he could have done with some more time and he could have focused on it a bit more, but we got it and we told the story, and we were just relieved that the whole entity was there, because if we hadn't finished shooting, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And distribution alone, like you got to tackle that. And
it's not a big machine, right? I mean, that's part of the joy of doing this, anything for Jackson and similar movies, is that, they're indie movies, and they're there by a wing and a prayer, really, for so many circumstances have to work for you, and you just have to seize them. And we did, and it paid off, and that was very gratifying.
So just so I'm getting this straight, so you guys had a shoot schedule of 15 days?
Yeah, I think it was a little more. That was the 15 days with the stuff that I was directly involved in. It was quick.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if I should be telling you this, because you know how it is. You sort of do something, you're very proud of it, and you don't want to apologize for something. You want them to be in the room along with everybody else and go, no excuses. We are what we are. But at the same time, there was a lot of ingenuity involved. I mean, we used the director's house, the writer's house.
It's a gorgeous house too.
Yeah. It's got its own character, for sure.
And did you guys film in Toronto?
In a town about 2 hours north of Toronto, a small town called Barrie, Ontario.
Okay.
And it sort of took a lot of the strain off the shoot, actually, because with the pandemic, and we knew with the approaching deadline, we had a bit more space and a bit, we were away from the main centers. So we could focus, and we could basically work in isolation on our, and especially as we had taken charge of our own studio and house and shooting facilities. So it was pretty controlled.
So how many pages was it? Was the script then?
Well, what was it, like 90, maybe 90?
Oh, wow.
It comes in at like the regular kind of hour and a half. It's a good question. I'm guessing like between 90 and 100 pages, I think.
Yeah.
If you're gonna try and shoot something like this in 15 days, like you kind of have to shave some, like you need to have a concise script, or it's just one of those like, well, we can say we're going to shoot 18 pages a day.
Yeah,
that's
well,
not
this is
going to happen.
You're absolutely right, and I've been in the situation, in those kind of situations where it's full of hope, but it's gone horribly wrong. This was different. It was a great script. The story was terrific. We all realized how strong it was. But on the second part of it was that Justin and Keith both were creative partners, had both worked on dozens and dozens of Christmas movies, and were used to trotting out formulaic shows that, you know, had a beginning, middle, and end. They knew how to shoot. They knew how to shoot to edit. They knew how to shoot under pressure and to get what they wanted. They no bullshit, you know, like they
knew how to make sausage. Like I'm a cinematographer, and that's very much how you have to approach it.
And yet at the same time, this was their baby. This was the creative project that they were both engaged in, and they put their hearts and souls, and they planned it meticulously. They cast it, they wrote it for the cast, you know, like they had everything in control. So we say 15 days, but under different people's hands and in different circumstances, that could have spread to 30, 45. You know, we have the luxury of clarity and focus. And Justin, our director, as I say, very comfortable with editing, knows every aspect of the business. We didn't waste a shot. We didn't waste time kind of going, oh, well, it would be really cool if we do an overhead here. And, you know, it was like, no, clear. This is where we need this. We tell the story here. We go over there.
Well, Ken, that's kind of like your analogy, where it's like, oh yeah, before you get the cherry shot, make sure you actually have the sundae.
Yeah. You want to get your ice cream. Yeah, you get your ice cream first, and then you add your whipped cream and your nuts. And if you are very good boys and girls, you get a cherry on top.
Exactly.
But if you don't do it in that order, you just end up with a bowl of whipped cream, and that's not food.
And I mean, how many times have I been on, you know, in my career on set, and actors are still trying to work out who their character is halfway through the shoot, and having arguments with other actors or with the director, and go, no, my character wouldn't do that. No, everything was clear. Everything was, it was beautifully set up.
Yeah. And for one, oh, sorry, Ken, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to ask. So I assume one of the things I think that's really marvelous with this movie is the tone. There's such a lovely balancing act between the mundane and the something is clearly insane going on behind it, but we're all just pretending like it's fine. I assume was moving as fast as you guys did that help kind of maintain the tone?
Yeah, it kept a momentum. Sheila and myself, we're similar sort of actors. We've done a lot of work ourselves. We've been around the block, and we've done a lot of theater. We've done a lot of, you know, character stuff in movies. We've taken the helm, and we've also watched a lot. And so we know where we are. And we know also that the story that was being told was the story of the two of us. And we worked very much in sync, and we worked and we played off each other, and we made that work rather than it be an issue. And in fact, we had a kind of a shorthand, and we knew when we were playing tag team, and it was Sheila was taking it, and then I was taking a scene. And I think it made it very, very interesting, because it wasn't just some kind of traditional bad, evil couple. It was a couple that were going through their own dynamic, and that pulled you in on a number of levels. And also the dynamic that we had with Dina, with Shannon, our kidnap victim, you know, that also sort of grew and changed and shifted, because we were all playing within the moment and within the reality that we were given. So yeah, the momentum kind of helped. And there wasn't lots of, you know, days in between. We were there, we were rehearsing. We didn't have the luxury of going off to our trailers and kind of chilling for a few hours while the lighting guys set it up. Like, we were there, we were on set, we were rehearsing, quick, pragmatic lighting, do the scene, keep moving. And there wasn't a sense of, well, has the director made up his mind what kind of shot we want? No, they knew. They absolutely knew. Right down to the magnificent special effect with the snowblower. Like, now talk about cherries.
Let's call that the Fargo shot.
the fact, yeah, like talk about cherries on top. You know, that was the big treat that they were allowing themselves halfway into the shoot. They'd planned it meticulously. They were out there with like different consistencies of frozen ice and things, going, right, what's going to make the best kind of splatter over here? Like that was their sort of, that was their cherry.
Yeah, and there was. Oh,
sorry, go on, David.
Sorry.
No,
yeah, and I was going to comes to sort of a question I was going to ask at one point is what was the comparison between practical and non-practical effects on this film? Because there's one ghost in this that I think it has to be everybody's favorite, and that's the one played by Troy James. Troy. I call him Baghead.
Yeah, well, who is a contortionist, I mean, and does all of those extraordinary moves. And we all, like on set, just kind of gasped. I mean, it's even more insane when you're there in the room with him, and he goes up, and then he's such a nice man. He stopped and would go, should I do it again or should I do it backwards? And then he could actually sort of reverse all these extraordinary moves that he did, and we were shrieking. You know how that kind of primal thing where you go, oh my God. I mean, we all of us were like that.
And he's got a great filmography of his own too. I even think he was on like one of those American talent shows.
Yes, as himself. And he's also featured in Guillermo del Toro's work and
Channel Zero.
People are figuring him out, right? And he's going to become a staple, I think, as more and more people get to see his work.
Oh, God, I hope so.
And that he's also a serious actor, too. You know, like he's a serious presence as opposed to being kind of, you know, how people with specific physicalities or qualities get lumped into stunt category. You know, they can't do much, but they're good stunt folks. No, Troy has a whole bag of things going for him.
And Ken, you were about to say something, but I stepped on you
before you so rudely
before I so rudely interrupted.
By the way, guys, I'm jabbering away here. I had assumed that we were about to sort of start, but we've segued into, we're officially talking now, aren't we?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. This is official, so I have to be very polite.
Yes. No. You're
we will. I'm going to find a subtle splice point, but yeah, we find it's much better to just kind of get talking with our guests and make it more conversational rather than an interrogation about what film.
Yeah. Tell me more about when you. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we try. We write out the questions just to have a basic blueprint of everything, but no, for one thing, I because a huge hats off to Cynthia because I had no idea that she also repped you, and we were talking to the writer and director of another Shudder movie called Slacks. And she's like, oh, Julian also has a project on, and I was so happy when I started watching this movie, because from the first frame, it starts so casual and it makes you guys so relatable and sweet.
Yeah.
And then cool, jumps into it.
That's what pulled me in, right? From the time I read it, I could see it in my mind's eye too, you know, as you read through the scripts. You go, oh my God. And it's that still camera that just captures the mundane, and you think, yeah, you know, these people, they're very sweet and quaint. And then suddenly
they're your grandparents.
But the horror also happens off camera. But then you go, what's going on? Where's the screaming coming from? And then you realize what's happened. And it's a great start to the movie.
Yeah, a lot of essence of less is more.
Yep, very much so.
Which, especially if you're working with like a 15-day shoot, I mean, I imagine that sort of tactic really comes in handy.
Very, very much so. And the sense of, it gives it creeping calm too. You referred to, you know, the quality of the movie. It just feels like something's off, that we're not, it's not like we're firing on all cylinders all the time and yelling and screaming. There's a slow build. And I think that's what's, I think Keith, the writer, has to take credit for that, in that it's very well constructed. Mm-hmm. And the ghosts too, the appearance of the ghosts come in at very critical points, and they catch vulnerable parts of our psyche. I think he's gone into it in great depth, you know, going like, well, what is it people are afraid of? Teeth, suffocation, And he's actually sort of found profound images that resonate with an audience as they're going through. Ones that directly relate to us, they don't necessarily score high on the shockometer, but they work insidiously.
Yeah, well, when he turns it up to 11, it means something because he doesn't do it all the time. I find like a lot of modern horror movies like immediately go to 10 and then like dial it back for act 2. Yeah. And it's kind of like, well, where do we go from here? You already were screaming and running through the house. Like
absolutely. Incidentally, I did the exact opposite very successfully one time. Do you ever see a movie called Cube? I don't know if you remember, there was a sci-fi movie. Now, most people remember me from it because I was the guy in the opening that got cubed, like splattered, sliced and diced. And it was like, oh, sorry, my phone is making all kinds of funny noises.
I think Ken's just now realizing this for the first time, and it's beautiful.
I got the shaved head, right? And then, and it was old school special effects. It was like the only budget that they had was to make that special effect right for the opening sequence, 5 minutes of the film. And they knew that if they hit the audience with that full on, there would be a sense of dread throughout the rest of it, because the rest of it was pretty talky. It's like they had one location, one set, had to keep changing the lights to give you the impression that they were on a journey through these different cubes. But it was the exact opposite, where like you started at 11 and then you kind of went down, but there was always the sense that it might suddenly escalate. Sorry, I'm being binged and bonged by my daughter.
No, but you're perfectly fine.
Oh, this is a podcast. It's very casual. Yeah. So I had a question for you, Julian. Is there something about playing a doctor that's different, like when preparing to play a doctor that's like different to prepare for than like other vocations that they play, just as a technical acting question?
I don't know. I think me talking personally, I prepare for the world that I'm in. So I was in a very kind of repressed, professional, grief-stricken situation where there were no children and there was a real sense of sort of longing and need. And so that was my world. If I was an accountant or a doctor, I don't know if it would have made a lot of difference. The only plot difference is that being a doctor obviously allowed me to kidnap one of my patients, and it made me the expert in birthing, although I surrendered that expertise over to the dark forces. So in a way, I guess I was kind of betraying my own professional ethics in a way. That gave me that sort of journey, but I didn't so I'm the kind of actor that wouldn't go and say, okay, I better learn how to be an obstetrician and how to examine people and what, how do you give birth, what do you do this and that. I think I took an emotional gauge on what a doctor is and what a doctor means to his patients and to his family. And I think the overriding relationship was, for me, even more important than the doctor, was the fact that Audrey and Henry, the two characters that Sheila and myself play, had been married for a considerable amount of time, to the point where we could complete each other's sentences, we could intuit what we were thinking, we were facilitating and enabling each other, because we gotten to the point in life where that was the easiest course of action.
And how much time did you guys have to develop that relationship and actually work on those little beats and notes throughout the movie?
We just did it on our feet, basically. We met a couple of times beforehand, read a couple of scenes with Justin, the director. But Sheila and I are old pros, and we're used to doing that, like doing it on your feet and going by instinct and playing off each other. And again, going back to our discussion earlier about, did the 15 days work or hinder you? I think it worked because we were constantly building and we never got stale. We were playing and dancing, and I think that comes through in the film. There's a sense of discovery. I think that's my point, is that, when you're alive and you're discovering things and you're open to other people on film and it's being filmed, it's interesting. And it also allows the horror to come in too, because we're also genuinely surprised at what's coming in the door, or what portal we've opened.
Mm-hmm. And so with somebody with over 200 credits to your name, I think it goes to say that you've done more than just horror movies. Is there a genre outside of horror that you like to gravitate to, or is there a project that is there a favorite project of yours?
I have several. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I do a lot of genre. I mean, look at me. You know, I'm big nose, cheekbones. My training was in Britain, but it was not the traditional British drama school. I trained with European theatre in mind. I went to Poland. I trained with Grotowski, with physical acting. I worked with the whole body, almost more like a dancer. And so I have a very kind of distinct look and a distinct way of performing. That's made me an outsider or an other, generally. It's meant that I haven't often been in the position where I've been the main storyteller or the main person on the heroic journey. I've generally come into situations where I'm a primary color. You know, if somebody's on a trip, and I will come in and I'll be an important thing to send them off on a different road. So that's been kind of, in a nutshell, my career. So that career has spanned genre, obviously, because, you know, there are lots of others in genre, and there are lots of frightening others, and there are lots of science fiction others, and there are ghostly others. So I sort of fit well there. But I love, my background is theater. I've done a lot of different work in theater, classical work, comedy. I like comedy, but I'm also an actor that doesn't believe there's comedy, there's tragedy, there's light, there's dark, there's horror, I believe that there is actually a whole mix. I think that the success of Anything for Jackson is a case in point, where it's actually a borderline very, very funny film, because there's an awful lot of, in horror is humor. I mean, look at Hitchcock. I mean, he uses humor to emphasize the shocks that are coming. And so that's always been my approach. This is a very long-winded answer, by the way. I'll finally get back to your question. So are there other types of roles? Over the years, I've been often cast as a musician, rock and roll guy. Mm-hmm. I've tended to enjoy that. Music has been my big influence in life. I grew up with the punk movement in the UK. So it's been special to me, and it's been special as a means of articulation and expression in the world, and kind of DIY honesty. And I find that in indie film. I find that sort of punk sensibility really exciting. So playing musicians and embodying that has always been good. I did a Canadian independent film called Hardcore Logo, in which I basically played an Iggy Pop kind of guy. It was a fantastic movie. It was actually the first movie that went to Berlin, the Berlin Festival. It was sent as a documentary. We shot it. I mean, it's a complete fictionalized film, but it was before The Office, before the idea of mockumentaries, but it was after Spinal Tap, and our director and creator called it Spinal Tap's Nasty Little Brother. And what it was a great, it was kind of a film within a film of a punk band reuniting and the tour going completely wrong. But within the course of the film, the band members visit me, who's a burned out rock and roll icon, on a farm, and we all kind of self-implode. But it was a fabulous film. And it's one of those films, it's a bit like the Velvet Underground in rock and roll, where hardly anybody saw it, but the people that saw it were very influential and influenced by it. And you know, and it went on, and it often has recurred in my life, and people refer to it and go, "You were in that film blah, 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 you know. So that was one of them. And there's just while we're on sort of highlights, I had the pleasure, the first time I've actually sort of worked at length in the US, I worked with a creator, writer named Stephen Conrad, who created this series Patriot that's still streaming on Amazon, I think. I shot 2 seasons of that with him and had a wonderful time. It's a marvelous, it's a comedy, but it's such a pitch black comedy that a lot of people go, I'm not calling it a comedy because it's not, you know. And again, for me, that's the exciting part of it, is because it challenges the boundaries of those categories. And for me, as a sort of a predominantly genre performer, I like to bring all kinds of things to the mix. There you go. That was a that was a bit of a long-winded.
Oh no! But like I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna leave the next question to Ken. I've gotten the last couple of them.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask. So Julian, is there anything? Is there any question you haven't been asked in an interview yet, or something about the project that you want to talk about that it hasn't been brought up?
Huh? That's it. You're twisting the interview now. Oh my God. Is there anything? I don't know. I'm enjoying having a conversation like this because I think what happens, especially in our industry, is that we're invited to sort of sell things. And, you know, like, you know, what are you here to sell? Well, I'm here to sell the film that I'm starring in, and it's great. And come on, everybody. And so I'm very happy for you guys to sort of, for us to have a chat and for your listeners to get a sense of who I am and the kind of work I do. Because for me, I am an actor, I will always be an actor. It's extremely important to me, but I'm not necessarily trying to be a celebrity. And I think that we get it mixed up in our industry. It's, you know, we do in rock and roll, we're in a celebrity culture where celebrity is valued over artistic output and content and risk and danger. And I think if you're going to genuinely be an artist and risk, and you're going to fail. And you're going to fail. You're going to do projects that don't work. You're going to say things that not everybody likes. You're going to, you know, you're not going to quite play the game. So for me, it's refreshing for us to have a conversation and to kind of flesh me out rather than just talk about the product. You know, I feel that, and I'm proud that the thing that I'm talking to you about are the nuts and bolts of it. The fact that it was a struggle. We got it in 15 days. We were all very happy with it, but it wasn't just, you know, and then I did this, and then I walked in off my trailer and did that. It was, I think that the work and the effort and the risk that we took is what people are responding to.
Yeah, and on this podcast that we're doing, we like to dive into sort of the technical nitty gritty stuff, like, because, you know, you could watch an interview about a movie, like, and they get about the same level of questions. So we kind of like to dive a little bit deeper and be like, okay, like what was this crew like to work? Like, what was it like to work with this specific crew? Like, how did they operate? How did, you know, how does this compare to some of the other work that you've done? So
I think another thing that's interesting about Anything for Jackson is that we have an older couple as our protagonist, but we also, like, we don't really know them. Sheila and I don't have celebrity status, but we follow them on this journey. It's not like, oh, it's X actor. We know we're in for a great ride with actor X, or when they appear, we know that, oh, even though they don't seem like an important character now, we know that they're going to be important because that's so-and-so and so-and-so. So there's a sense that you're going along with every man and every woman on this journey. And that's kind of exciting. And going back to my thing about celebrity, I think that there's an awful lot of interesting material out there, that doesn't necessarily feature recognizable people. And and in fact, sometimes when you have a recognizable person, you stop recognizing the real you or me within that person. You know, you're starting to go, oh, it's Robert De Niro, or it's, you know, whoever it is, who, fine as they are, we have pre-expectations of them, and it kind of infects the story. So why I like, you know, this genre particularly is it brings ideas, and it brings a lot of people that and faces that people aren't necessarily familiar with.
Mm-hmm. And before, because it looks like we're getting towards the end before Zoom decides it wants to kick us off. So I think we're going to start wrapping it up. Ken, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we?
I just wanted to ask, were there any like movies or art or paintings or music that Justin had you research or take a look at, or that was inspiration for this movie?
No, I mean, you know, there are similar, like Rosemary's Baby is one, but he and I both mentioned it because when we saw the script, we went, well, there are similarities, but we both said, no, we're not going to look at it because this is not an homage to it. But obviously, it, you know, it will be at some point in history, it will be categorized in the same league as that. But there is no effort to try and either nod to it or to reposition it. So nothing really. I think I asked Justin if there was any pieces of music that I like working subliminally a little bit rather than, you know, is there a character you think of? Or I like to, like, if he hears a piece of music that's that he thinks Henry would listen to, or I'll ask him what he thinks that might be, and then I'll sort of exchange ideas. But it's operating on it's not on a surface level. It's more on a helping the intuitive choices rather than copying.
Okay.
So, and yeah, it's like smell. You know, smell is such a visceral quality, but it's you can't pin it down. When you smell, you are taken back to memories of your grandmother's front yard, you know, with rosemary and or whatever the smell is. But it's overwhelming, and I find that as an actor much more evocative and a place to go for. So music, smells, ideas, things like that. But again, we didn't have a lot of time, so we went on instinct. And because he cast it well, and it was written with us in mind and the kind of things that we might do, there was a natural fit.
And I guess before we start finishing up here, I guess the last question I would have is what is the ultimate lesson or theme that the director wanted to put across with this film, aside from, you know, don't bring forth the devil into your home?
Right. I don't think he had a message, but I know that what appealed to me, and I articulated it, and he agreed that what was there was that it is in this film, in the subtexture of this film, is how badly an older generation treats a younger generation in the name of helping each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you can take that on an environmental level, you can take it on a political level, you could, whatever you want to do, but there is a sense of entitlement of the elders, and the elders are not behaving in the responsible way that they should be. They should be pillars of society. It's a doctor and a professional. Now, they've gone through some terrible experiences, as have all elders in society, but the way that manifests itself is completely wrong. And I think there are disastrous consequences as a result of that. So I think that even though we like Audrey and Henry, and it's necessary to like them and to feel accessible to them, I think their actions are extremely questionable.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that one. Well, then I guess this, as we're coming to the end here, I guess this brings us to the end of our interview. Julian, before we start signing off, is there Now we get to the selling point of this interview. Is there anything that you would like to plug, or is there any project that you're working on now that you would like to mention?
Well, it's weird. Because of COVID and because of the kind of actor I am, I'm in a lot of different things. And over the last 12 to 16 months, nothing's really been released. You know, we've had all these strange sort of delays in marketing and festivals. So I have about 4 or 5 projects now that are just sort of bubbling. And most of them are genre, but it's quite exciting. I'm beginning to see a couple of projects that I did around the time of Anything for Jackson now beginning to emerge as well. So yesterday at the Calgary Film Festival, it was digital, it was online. A movie called Vicious Fun was premiered, and it's a kind of it's a love letter to 80s horror movies by the director who's done a lot of horror genre stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a young horror film critic finds himself trapped in a self-help group for serial killers, and gets chased by serial killers. Like, it's a very sort of a very specific setup with a lot of fun. In my David, I never know how to say his last name. Koechner from Anchorman. David Koechner.
Oh, it's David Koechner.
Koechner. Is in there as the sort of the host of it. So you can see it's got we are not talking naturalism, we're talking like homage. So that's a lot of fun. Look out for that. Vicious Fun. And a movie called Spare Parts 2, which is kind of an out and out girl power punk band, gets surgically altered to get weapons on their limbs so that they become gladiators fighting the patriarchy. It's kind of a slasher horror. It's kind of I'm
all here for that.
It's kind of fun. So that's Spare Parts, directed by Andrew Hunt. That's sort of coming out and bubbling in the indie horror circuit.
Awesome.
Great.
All right. Well, Julian, thank you again so much. Really enjoyed the movie, and looking forward to seeing you in many more movies to come.
Great. Nice talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Well, there we go.
I
David.
emerge, you emerge. My God.
What a good guy.
Good guy.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun talking to Julian.
Yeah, he just one of those professionals who just real easy to get to know. Ken, what did you think?
Of Julian or the movie?
You know what? Let's start with Julian.
I really liked. I thought Julian was. He a consummate professional, someone who's been around the block a bunch, and someone who really understands how to get to the meat and potatoes of what is required for a role like this. One of the things that I really liked hearing him talk about was how moving as fast as they did required him and Sheila McCarthy to really work off of instinct together, and it didn't allow them they didn't allow them a lot of time for too much preparation. It made them be very much in the moment and allowed them to kind of keep this tone in the movie that I think it would be very easy to overthink your way out of here. There is a banality to the terror in this film that I find to be genius, and a very strict balancing act that everyone comes together in order to just nail. And I could very much see if you had weeks and weeks of prep kind of getting afraid of letting the script do the work for you. And then you start kind of gilding the lily, and then you kind of start taking away what I really think makes this movie special, which is how much it achieves with how little it does.
Mm-hmm. This Anything for Jackson is the perfect example of when patience meets preparation and meets skill. It is when you take your time you kind of you get to know what you need to know, and then you go out with this vast library of knowledge, knowing what you wanted to do from the beginning, and you make a fucking brilliant film. And he had all the, and this is the case where they knew, the director Jordan Dick knew that he wanted Julian Richings for this part. He knew that he wanted Sheila McCarthy, who plays Audrey, his wife. They were at the back of his mind as he was writing this. And this is a very fascinating film because I think it's what's more fascinating is kind of the director behind it, and how the more I learned about this individual, I'm beginning to suspect, Ken, that somebody took his blood and played a little bit of science and made a tiny clone, and that clone is you.
Oh, that's concerning.
Yeah. Someone's out there stealing your lunch, buddy. It's...
oh, no. Okay.
Yeah. Because, goddamn it, this... The more I've gotten to know you as a friend, the more that we've communicated and discussed films and have even gotten the chance to do a couple of things together here and there, whether it just be like helping out with something somewhere. There is the way that you go about filmmaking and the way that you process film as it is. Mm-hmm. You see very much in the interviews with this director. And I said Jordan earlier. Sorry, it was Justin. I got my J's mixed up.
I'm sure his brother Jordan is very happy about that.
Yeah. Hey, buddy. But if you go onto his IMDb, I'm gonna put us over there quite quick. Here we go. Bear with me.
Thrilling podcast stuff. David.
Thrilling, I know.
Wonderful stuff for an audio medium. Definitely.
I love, of course, I'm holding my phone that my IMDb is on. Damn my life. So, Ken, if you were to go into this man's filmography, what would you expect to see?
Well, being that we've already traveled in time and interviewed him, I would say I would expect to see several Hallmark movies because I know that, in fact, is what his background is. But it does not surprise me to see him be able to turn that background, that series of, what's a good way to put this? I'm not surprised that someone who has had to make that much sausage, who has had a hard deadline, who has not had creative control over the script, who is bringing in a particular formula, then was able to figure out how to take what he knew he could achieve, what he knew he could get away with, what he knew looked good even though it wasn't as complicated as it looked. I'm not surprised that someone with that background was able to turn around and make a movie like this. This is... The problem tends to be is that like I have met several filmmakers now who I would say fall into this category of their problem is that they are very good at doing things cheaply. And as a result, they end up getting to do cheap things, and they kind of never get the credit that they deserve for actually being the kind of baseball player who just hits like doubles and triples all the time. Mm-hmm. And you're not usually home runs, but you look back at his record, there's a whole lot of RBIs, whole lot of solid baseball from this guy. And then finally that person gets their, finally gets the correct spot in the lineup. Yeah. They finally get their chance to shine. They finally get a chance to go up against someone who they can shine against, and then they turn out this. This is a great example of someone who I'm sure for a lot of the film journalism world will be considered an overnight success. And I mean, overnight success, like 15 years in the making.
Yeah. And it doesn't help, like he was saying, the fact that production literally stopped an hour before everything had to close down for quarantine. Mm-hmm. And so what an unfortunate time for him to make just like the the beginning of the magnus opum that is hopefully his career to follow.
It is unfortunately one of the. It is something that a lot of filmmakers are facing, and or now that things are starting to open up again, they are starting to face the question of like, well, okay, but it turns out a lot of film festivals figured out that you can do stuff online, and so it turns out that like, yeah, there will probably be like a Sundance that's, you know, in Park City and is in those, you know, hotels, but that will be like the top tier of Sundance, and they'll figure out they can rent a few less theaters and then do a big chunk of their like short films and indie stuff online.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess we see if going to Sundance still means something. Don't get me wrong, if you get that prestige spot, sure. But I see a lot of opportunities for a lot of the big film festivals to really be able to open up the number of films that are accepted. But that just means you're now one of 1,000 films trying to get the attention of viewers, as opposed to before where it was like one of 200 or one of 100. And that was hard enough. So now, and again, you know, you're one of these quote-unquote independent films that happens to land a movie star to star in it. Yeah, you're probably going to have a pretty good chance at, you know, being able to make it to one of your bigger fests. But if you're legitimately making a small movie with, you know, without big names, man, the market that is ahead of us seems like a cannibalistic demolition derby.
Ken, would you say that, I mean, obviously you're always going to have familiar names, but would you say that now it's getting easier or will likely wind up being easier to push off a film campaign and have it be successful without having familiar names in it? Given that there's so much stuff out there. Would it make sense to think like there's like, how could you pick out this person from this vast library of material?
I think a big discussion there has to do with what counts as a familiar name. I think there are a lot of YouTube and TikTok stars that are familiar to people under the age of 30, who anyone over the age of 30 is pretty much oblivious to their existence or an understanding of how big they actually are. Like how much of an audience they actually have. I think we are and how much sometimes that doesn't translate. There's been a lot of YouTube stars who have had a chance to make something that approximates a movie, and most of them haven't found success because it turns out making one of those is very different than making the other. So while their career on YouTube allows them to have the opportunity to generate a lot of eyeballs and a lot of views, it also generates a very high expectation level often. And because the two formats are literally just different, a lot of times you end up with kind of a product bait and switch, or the audience kind of wanting one thing and then the creator making another, and and that just changes. And I think that's just a huge change that we are seeing in the market right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ken, I think we've established at this point, like, you enjoyed this film.
I did.
Before we start diving into what the film is, could you give me a short summary of the plot of this film?
Yeah, that's pretty easy. The grandparents of a little boy who died, unfortunately, as a little boy, decide to buy what might be the world's oldest book and try to bring him back to life with the help of a demon. And it turns out that they're bad at commas and stuff. And as a result, things get out of hand. And it doesn't go well because it's a horror movie.
Would you say that this is kind of like a Fargo for horror?
They both definitely have a wood chipper involved. They both are movies that play with the banality of horrific acts. They are both movies that address a certain kind of Minnesota nice,
almost a naivete.
Not quite naivete, just a adherence to a certain kind of social contract, almost regardless of what's going on underneath the surface. And so, yes.
And I as I was reviewing, because I left my notes for this episode at home, so I was kind of going over the points that I was going to make during this presentation, and it really just dawned on me, it's like, holy fuck, this is Fargo, but for horror. Oh, okay. Yeah, this movie makes a lot more sense now, and that is, it's Justin Dick really wanted this film to be grounded, which is why he chose to have the Satanist meeting in a community center, because you're like, okay, like let's look at where they are. You know, they're on the outskirts of Toronto. You know, and let's look at who they are. They're just this old, sweet couple. Maybe a little privileged and naive about the world around them. But where do you think a couple like that is going to find their information and their sources? They're going to go to the community center.
That or Facebook.
That or Facebook. But even then, like, the people that they're going to pull in from Facebook that are close to them, they're going to be meeting at a place that serves coffee and donuts during their meeting. There's maybe like 5-6 people in the group, and 2 of them are non-committal. One of them is super committal. And the other one just wants to seem like they're in charge. Like, it grounds this film perfectly to the point where when all of this absurd shit happens, it becomes almost like a comedy. But it still is very rooted in a serious theme, which is, like grief. These grandparents lost their tiny, adorable grandson.
Yeah, you understand why they'd be willing to do anything for Jackson. You don't necessarily agree with the way that they're going about it, but you can understand what's making their ill-advised brains spin.
And the opening frame for this film is very reminiscent of Dick's past filmography. Which, if you go into his filmography, let me just read you a couple of the films that he's known for. A Christmas Exchange, A Witch's Ball, Love by Accident. It's Love in Harmony Valley.
It's a whole bunch of Hallmark and
Pony Sitters Club, The Big Sleepover.
Yeah, Pony Sitters.
So,
sure, it's a brony film.
Like a solid 30 to 40 of his films have the word Christmas in it. And so when you put this movie on, you don't expect Hallmark.
Well, I mean, the movie's not marketed as from the director of all this Hallmark stuff. It's just a Shudder original. This is one of those incidents where this is a very teachable moment for directors out there, where what do you do when you are making a very good living making Lifetime and Hallmark Christmas movies and holiday movies and the ilk, and you are working regularly, you are getting paid, but you are not necessarily happy making those kind of movies. But the problem becomes, while yes, your work experience on those films should go a long way to proving to producers and the like that actually, yes, I can make this other kind of movie. Actually, it raises a lot of red flags for producers and the like, because you suddenly aren't a known entity. Oh, can you make a scary movie? Yeah, I made all this crap over here that I didn't care about, but I still did it, and I still
I showed up.
Yeah, I showed up. I did the work. Now imagine if I care, and I do.
Yeah.
Like, let's see what's going to happen. And you'd be surprised at how hard it is to actually get people to roll the dice on that particular bet, despite the fact that, the film business isn't a business. It's film gambling. And I wish more...
Often run by spreadsheets.
Well, yes, because... So, like, if you want to be a professional gambler, mm-hmm. the way that you make money in the movies as a professional poker player or a gambler is you go in and everybody just ends up drawing on the last, like on the river or whatever it is. Like, everybody just ends up getting the slightly better hand on the next turn of the cards. Mm-hmm. Where the way that, like, you make money as a gambler, as like a poker player, or as someone playing blackjack and learning to count cards, it's a grind. It's, you fold most of your hands. It's, you only bet if you really know that the odds are in your favor. And you play for a long time. And you make a lot of little bets. But those are all smart bets, and those bets add up. And what we do in the film business instead is everybody tries to get the biggest, most monster hand every single time. And I'm telling you, Hollywood, as opposed to making one $100 million movie, you are better off making 50 $2 million movies. Because some of those won't hit right away. Some of them will. Some of them will hit in a little bit. And some of them will just kind of break even. It's a small bet, though. And making a lot of little bets is going to do a lot better, because the problem is when you make one of those big swings, if you miss big. It's, you can swing away as a baseball player, but you don't necessarily want to swing away in the ninth inning of the World Series.
Suddenly, 20 years later, still nobody's taking your calls because you made Super Mario Brothers the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, that's exactly what and I would say that this director does a fantastic job throughout his career at understanding just that. At the beginning, like, he even says, like, I wanted to make a horror film from the beginning. That's what I gravitated to. And so this main financier and producer is finally working with him and helping bring in scripts for him to work on. And he's about to do his first feature. And what kind of horror movie does this person bring him? Not a horror movie, but she brings this man a movie about a child that plays soccer with a monkey. And it is called Monkey in the Middle. And it is a children's film. Okay. Now, does he bite the hand that feeds him? No. He accepts the humor of what it is, and he works his ass off doing it. And then and then from there, it actually turned out to be very successful in the market that it was going for. And so they brought him more of the same types of films, which is why his filmography is just packed to the brim with Hallmark Christmas movies and holiday films. And then finally, his friend, who's also the co-writer, Keith Cooper, mm-hmm. comes to him with somebody who's willing to put money in on this project that they have been wanting to do together for a very long time. And then I just feel so bad that everything finally is going their way, and then a ginormous pandemic just hits.
Which kind of it takes a lot of the wind out of the distribution sales, if nothing else.
Oh yeah, and I am very happy that we're doing this film because it is on Shudder, and it is a Shudder exclusive.
Well, I mean, that's what we do here.
Yeah, but it is. It wasn't popping up at the front of the line when it was brought to my attention, but now I'm starting to see it on the streaming service mm-hmm. much more prominently. Now that more things are being released, now that things are getting a little bit more of a push, things are starting to open back up. But this is somebody that all he has to do is show this film to the people putting up the money, and they'll be like, oh no, you absolutely can do this. Please go do another horror movie. So I do feel like this is his golden ticket into a very prominent career as somebody who knows what they're talking about.
This is definitely somebody who's figured out how to do the pivot, which is a hard thing to do.
Oh, absolutely. Let's see. I'm trying to... Ken, what particularly about this movie stuck out to you that made you enjoy it the way you did?
The thing about this that I think is the strongest is the balancing act between the horrific, extraordinary nature of the supernatural horror. The way that the bagman is able to move, the absolutely just unsettling nature of the flossing lady, all of the various supernatural elements all had a very inherent, uncomfortable, and nightmarish reality to them. And I thought that was that was very interestingly and effectively combined with the throw-it-away realistic nature of all of the performances. Everybody in this movie seemed like they were dealing with like a printer that was on the fritz, except it just happened to be like the devil and we're all going to die. But it was all like, well, yeah, we just, I found this book and we read some stuff and okay, yes, now we're seeing some demons, but like it's not a big deal, right? Like we can, like, can't we use like salt?
I read about it on the internet. I think I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, this is totally fine.
Yeah,
and it's getting both of those things to harmonize is, I think, the true achievement of the director and this movie, because getting just one of those to land would make a movie effective, but getting both of them to work at the same time and to make both of them stronger as they do it is, well, I mean, it's a reason to check out this movie.
Yeah. This film does what another property it does that I've been a very big fan of. I don't know if, Ken, you've heard of Silent Hill, I imagine, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I grew up under a rock, not under a boulder.
Well, yeah, no, this is a game franchise I was a fan of ever since I was a kid. The best one, I would say, has to be Silent Hill 2.
Sure.
And one of the things that the writers do for the story in this franchise is every monster and everything that exists in it is in some way attached to one or both of the characters. The main villain, Pyramid Head, is supposed to be the main protagonist's id, for lack of a better word. And this film does the exact same thing. I think Keith Cooper, who wrote most of this, wrote the monsters from a place, what did he call it? It was, he based every monster on dream analysis. Mm-hmm. And that dream analysis was focused around this elderly couple. And, like, for example, the woman flossing in this film, she is supposed to be representative of Julian's character, because Julian is somebody who, he's settled in. Like, he's got a good career, he's established, he makes good money, he has a good house and a loving wife, and he has a wonderful life that he has control over. And so, but then they lose both their grandson and then their daughter. And so this woman flossing her teeth is supposed to be a dream analysis on what a person like that might dream about, or what their nightmare might be, in the sense of like, cool, like, apparently, like, when you floss, like, the idea of any kind of dental or bodily trauma or something is falling apart on you or you're sick.
We just watched The Dentist, and like that's half of what's driving Corbin Burnson insane.
Exactly.
It's just the idea of the decay
and the loss of control.
And the loss of control, and it not being perfect, and it not being pristine, and it not being taken care of, and there's still being something wrong there. That's why in those dreams the person is like flossing their teeth until they fall out. Because it's either like they are falling apart because of neglect, or they are falling apart because you are doing too much. You are either being too hands-on or too hands-off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so this film does a very good job at taking that dream analysis, writing these monsters, and then not going like full CG with it. Mm-hmm. In fact, most of the effects and most of the creatures were practical. In fact, one of the better ghosts in this, one of the ones that I enjoyed the most, which was the Bagman.
Julian said that in the interview. He was just doing it for real on set. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, what he was talking about was just great. Because if you were to do a contortionist and suddenly try and CG all that, something about it would seem unnatural, sure, but not in the way I think that a director would intend. A perfect example of this is the prequel that they made to The Thing, where they did an incredible amount of practical effects on set. But then when it came to the release of the film, they ended up redoing a lot of the effects in pure CG, or just covering them up completely with CG. And as a result, you get this kind of weird hybrid of some stuff that looks kind of good, but other stuff that kind of looks like crap, or could look better because it's fake, and you kind of want to know what something similar happened on The Hobbit. It's a real hard line to walk where you have to commit to something on the day, and honestly, if you have something with as long of a production schedule as something like The Hobbit does, suddenly if a year later you had a different idea of what the orcs could look like, and you have the money to change the orcs, I get the allure to go and do it. I don't know if it's a good idea. It hasn't worked out most of the time, but, maybe that's why Peter Jackson gets to make movies and I
don't. But yeah, and before we start wrapping things up, the band who played the Bagman that Julian talks about, Troy James. Some of the projects, honestly, that I think most folks should check him out in. Like, he's in Hellboy. He played Baba Yaga. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Ended up playing the Jangly Man. And he's been in actually a good portion of the Channel Zero. Which, I'm trying to remember, I think that's on Shudder. But if not, I do believe it's like a YouTube original. But on Channel Zero, he plays a large portion of the monsters in these series. So there was, what was that one called? Oh well, I'll think of it another time. Oh no, yeah, he plays Pretzel Jack in Channel Zero's The Dream Door, and having watched that, it is incredible. Holy shit, it's so creepy, and yeah, this film does this amazing job of marrying a director who's finally ready to step out on the stage and make what he's wanted to make for the longest time, and marrying that with all of the right pieces. So marrying that with Julian, with Troy, with his writer Keith, and ultimately I think you get a solid film that is definitely worth everyone's time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, everybody should check out. This is this film starts off very quiet and carries a big stick, and by the very end will impress you. Yeah.
I would like to, it's kind of like a reverse Exorcist.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Much like this picture of this cat that I drew.
Yeah, I've been noticing. Oh, I'm getting a picture of that.
Okay. Yes, no. Yeah, I drew the gato. Anyway, David, question.
Yes.
Well, actually, it's not even a question. I guess it's more of an announcement. So I'm moving to Colorado, and as a result, we're going to have to take a few weeks off for the podcast.
Yes.
So this is the 30th episode, so we're calling this the end of season 1. and we will, in fact, be back for season 2 in a couple of weeks. I am moving at the end of this month here, and so it give me a week or so once I'm there to kind of get settled in, and for us to take a look at what's on Shudder and figure out what we're going to do. So this is going to be an unusual episode. We're not going to tell the guests what's coming up next.
No, we're not.
Because we want to make sure that whatever we choose is going to be on Shudder. Because like Devils just left Shudder.
I know. I saw that. And that really upsets me.
Which is one of the reasons that we do this podcast, so that way we can help you at home understand, or not understand. We can just let you at home know what's good on Shudder, so you can check it out. Because the world that we live in now with streaming means that sometimes these titles are here and sometimes they're not. So we want to try and point you to the ones that you should check out.
It's what Disney's always wanted to do with the Vault.
Yes, no, it is the culmination of the Disney Vault for sure. So that means as we come to the end of this episode, as opposed to traveling in time, which we did earlier, I guess the only thing to do is plug our pluggables. Yeah. David,
I'm going to take the crown and I'm going to put it here. I'm not even going to get back to you.
No.
I'm just going to set it right here.
You know what? Hey, hold on. Put it in the time machine. Plop. Okay. Do. Boop. Do. Now, we're still here.
Yeah.
We just sent it. That thing is...
You kept the remote, right?
Yes. As long as I did everything right, and as long as I can find the keyless entry, we will be able... it's going to show up again in, I think it's like 447.
You pulled a Captain America, didn't you?
I don't know what that means.
That's where you meet up with it in the future.
Sure. Yes, that's what...
Then the time machine hands you the crown, like it's the Captain America shield.
Yep, I'm hip, and that's exactly what I did. So in a few weeks, that'll show up once I'm in Colorado, and then I can put the crown back on, and I can start episode 1 of season 2 with whatever mystery thing we're going to cover then, because I don't know if you know this, we actually don't work for Shudder. They don't tell us anything. We're just dudes with a subscription to Shudder. We like talking about the stuff. Yeah. So David, do you want to tell the people where they can find us online in the meantime?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to keep track of all the shenanigans that Shudder Show is up to, you can check us out on Instagram at Shudder_show. If you'd like to check out what I'm up to, I don't feel free. I'm at _DW Marlowe.
How dare you?
People, I'm important.
I have a prestigious blog, sir.
Now, Ken, so you're going to Colorado, hopefully coming back.
Yeah, we're going to see. The pandemic kind of spun me for a loop, and I kind of need to stretch myself out a little bit more. So yeah, I will hopefully be coming back to LA. If not, I'll be around the Denver area. Yeah. So I guess you could reach out if we have that kind of... we actually don't have that kind of parenthetical relationship. Parasocial relationship. That's just the wrong word. Anyway, this is completely off the rails. You can find me on Twitter for us at Shudder Show, no underscore this time. You can find me personally on Twitter at Ken Stacknick, KenStacknik. That's the same for my Instagram as well. Other than that... what'd you break?
I broke nothing, sir.
How dare you?
But I realized that in the interview, Julian didn't give us his pluggables. But his pluggables were provided to us by him. So it seems only fair that we let you know that you can find him on Instagram at Julians_Richings, and Twitter at Julian Richings, and Facebook at Julian.Richings. It's a pretty simple thing he's got worked out there.
There we go.
Literally just his name.
A professional, as always.
But yeah, with that being said...
until we meet again, good night, good luck.
Oh, did you leave the weed in the time machine?
Oh, shit.
Oh, mother... Fuck you guys.